3, 2, 1, start.
A very good evening to one and all, to all our dignitaries and the audience who have joined through the Zoom link, and also those who have joined on the YouTube, which is also live casting this event. Symbiosis Law School Pune has been organizing the late V.G. Deshmukh Memorial Public Lecture in collaboration with Public Concern for Governance Trust since 2012. This year, we are hosting the 9th late V.G. Deshmukh Memorial Lecture. In the past, we've had eminent personalities gracing this public lecture series, and in this year, in its 9th edition, we have as our chief guest Mr. Shekhar Dutt, the former Defense Secretary and former Governor of Chhattisgarh, who will deliver the lecture on the theme National Security and Good Governance. To begin with, we have Dr. Shashikala Gurpur, Director, Symbiosis Law School Pune, and Dean of the Law Faculty, Symbiosis International University, who is a person who has been working tirelessly to put Symbiosis Law School Pune on the path of excellence and who ensures that no stone is left unturned. Her leadership skills are something that we all at the law school admire. I request Dr. Gurpur to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, ma'am.
Dr. Gurpur, please unmute.
Good evening, one and all. Respected Vice Chancellor, Madam, Dr. Rajni Gupte, our esteemed speaker and veteran public servant, Mr. Shekhar Dutt, our own dear Public Concern for Governance Trust leaders such as the Chair, Shri S.C. Nagpal, rest of the leadership figures like Mr. Satish Khoth, Mr. Dodd and Mr. Ajit Nimbalkar among the few, and my dear colleagues, Dr. Bindu and others. It's my humble privilege to deliver the welcome address and to begin this program as our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. S.B. Muzumdar Sir, and also our Honorable Pro-Chancellor, Dr. Vidya Eravdekar could not be here. So on behalf of all of them and also with the permission of respected Vice Chancellor Madam, I'm very happy to welcome each and every one of you. This occasion is very special for us. It's an yearly event. Although this year it is surrounded by a pensive note of the shadows of COVID, but nothing could deter our young team at PCGT and our young faculty here and our own university's untiring mission to crave for excellence. I must tell you that there is one synergy that we have in common, and there is one personality which has woven everything into a kind of fused whole on this occasion. That one person is none other than late V.G. Deshmukh. His persona and his spirit could never be wiped out of the schema of our mind. I still recall how sir used to tell me, Shashikala, we have to make our students to listen to this. They should know about this. If there was a Supreme Court judgment yesterday and today, if I happen to be at the dinner with him, usually our Chancellor sir used to host these dinners with his esteemed friends, and sir would say, our students should know about this judgment. They should know the moral impact of it. Such was the commitment of late Mr. Deshmukh, which motivated us to collaborate with PCGT and to in a way sprinkle these nuggets of wisdom on our students. So when sir was there, we used to have collaboration with PCGT, which converted into this event, this annual feature in his memory. Sadly in his memory, but gladly in terms of celebration of his life, his values, and his mission of public service. I'm very happy to share with you that PCGT, or Public Concern for Governance Trust, has been our knowledge partner for the Symbiosis International University's various arms and for Symbiosis Law School in particular. Symbiosis School of Economics also has got a very close collaboration with the trust. We have our university hosting a scholarship at the generosity of late Mr. Deshmukh in memory of his daughter, which I'm sure Madam will highlight. Whereas with the law school, the common ground has been struck in terms of commitment to public service. So public concern for governance trust, or PCGT as we abbreviate it, has been our knowledge partner in many ways. We have been here to gain among all our stakeholders from the great work of the trust and of the life and achievements of late Mr. Deshmukh. Let me enlist a few. First of all, it is our collaborator non-governmental organization which helps us in engaging students in civic engagement, either in the dissemination of the ideas as this extension lecture goes on, or in the form of various awareness programs in various, particularly in the areas of new legislation and issues related to governance. And I must tell you, sir, that we have evolved a specialization in LLM for last 3 years, first of its kind in the Symbiosis umbrella, on the issue of, or on the specialization of law and governance. So this could be possible because of the nuggets of wisdom we gathered at these interactions that we have had with you, and some of our esteemed resource persons like Justice Judge Dake Falkar, who is one of the lead figures in PCGT, Mr. Nagpal himself, who has been a retired IT commissioner, and Mr. Krishnan, an ex-IPS, coming and enriching our agenda with teaching, with practical exposure to students. We have had our university's ambitious service learning project, which is a mandatory kind of 50 to 60 hours of exposure to our undergrad students in their life cycle, has been collaborated by PCGT. Every year, half a dozen to 1 dozen students go to PCGT for enriching themselves through this program. We have had resource persons, learning resources. We have had link to Police Research Institute and many other public service initiatives through this organization. So here we stand to welcome you, sir, as our partners in excellence. What kind of excellence? You all must be aware, and for the benefit of Mr. Dutt, I would like to, if not sounding very self-inflated, share that our university has been one of the top 50 universities in this country, and our law school has been one of the top 10 law schools in this country in various surveys since 2000 consistently. This has been possible because of the great vision of Dr. S.B. Mazumdar sir, the founder of Symbiosis and the chancellor of this great university, who always foresaw things before anybody else could think and put us on a pedestal of excellence and learning from everybody and providing every platform for enriching students and making them ready for national development. That has been the mission of this university. And the law school, with its particular orientation towards professionalism and public service, has been very, very fortunate to be in this family. So some of the highlights of our law school has been a very enriched cutting edge curriculum, total professional orientation, very structured skills program, and having programs from diploma to PhD being trained under one umbrella with around 2,000 students in this campus. We are also happy to share that under the Faculty of Law, we have expanded this excellence in Noida with another law school, and in Hyderabad, and lately last year in Nagpur. So all these law schools are standing as pillars of strength like other symbiosis institutions, and they are enriching the landscape of education in this country with innovation and excellence. Mr. Shekhar Dutt, it's my privilege, along with PCGT, to welcome you. And I'm very happy to note that our students will have the privilege in this day and age when they are more oriented towards a momentary happiness or a momentary achievement to learn from the life which has been dedicated to public service. Your trajectory has been a very, very rich trajectory, like the heritage of this country, moving from commitment and honor service in army to becoming governor of a state, and alongside never leaving any moment to move towards good of human beings and for the welfare of this nation. Sir, our students will definitely learn from you. They have a lot of questions also lined up for you. I'm sure Dr. Bindu will manage it very well. And as I welcome you, I feel very honored that erstwhile resource persons whom PCGT brought to us, thanks to Mr. Nagpal's great vision and admiration for our law school's excellence, have remained with us as resource persons. Mr. Fabian, who spoke last year, who has been an ex-ambassador and a close friend of Mr. Nagpal, has been our frequent speaker in enriching diplomacy and international studies and other agenda in this institute, whereby students have learned a lot. So I'm sure that today's occasion is the beginning of a long-lasting relationship, and it will enrich all of us in days to come as we shape these young minds to take the cajoles of this nation. So I welcome each and every one of you, and I particularly express my gratitude to Dr. Gupte for being here, representing our Chancellor and Pro-Chancellor amid her busy schedule. And we know how it is like with the admissions and with a lot of changes at the national level going on, and Pune's COVID crisis, how ma'am has managed time to be with us and to support us and encourage us. Welcome, ma'am. And I welcome all the dear students, the audiences who are the friends of PCGT, who are here to learn from this occasion, and all the office bearers and leadership figures of PCGT, as I welcome my dear colleague and other friends of this institute. Welcome one and all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gurpur ma'am. Dr. Rajni Gupte, Vice Chancellor, Symbiosis International Deemed University, is a distinguished academician and has been at the helm of the organization and has nurtured the university with great passion. May I now request ma'am to deliver the address. Over to you, Gupte ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Bindu. On behalf of the Chancellor, Dr. S.P. Mazumdar, the Pro-Chancellor, Dr. Vidya Ravekar, I extend a very warm welcome to the Chief Guest, Shri Shekhar Dutt, former Defense Secretary and former Governor of Chhattisgarh. I also welcome Mr. Nagpal, the Chairman of the Public Concern Governance Trust, Mr. Krishnan, Mr. Nimbarkar, Mr. Khoth, Mr. Dodd, and my colleagues, Dr. Shashikala Gurpur, Dr. Bindu, and all the faculty at the Symbiosis Law School. I also welcome, I think I saw Dr. Jyoti, the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities there. So a warm welcome to each one of you for this wonderful event which the Symbiosis Law School has been hosting for the last 8 years. This is the 9th edition of the V.G. Deshmukh Memorial Public Lecture Series. I begin by paying my respects to the late Shri V.G. Deshmukh, a stalwart who left an imprint on every task that he undertook. The Symbiosis International University, as Dr. Gurpur rightly mentioned, believes that students learn as much in class as they do outside. And this is usually done through a series of activities which are so well planned and organized by each institution of Symbiosis. Dr. Gurpur very rightly mentioned that a host of lectures are organized at the Symbiosis Law School, Pune, as well as at the other institutes of Symbiosis. This provides the student an opportunity to learn from stalwarts like you, and we believe that this relationship goes a long way in making Symbiosis what it is today. Students, of course, learn in class, but the learning that they get from your life experiences, and when you share your experiences with these students, or when you engage them in debates or a lot of things that are happening in the country, I think students benefit tremendously. And this is, I believe, one of the features that distinguishes Symbiosis. It was also mentioned that all past speakers have continued to remain in touch, and I hope you will do too. This is something that we value tremendously. This event, organized in collaboration with PCGT in memory of late Shri V.G. Deshmukh, addresses a very important topic today: national security and good governance. At a time when the world is reeling in the throes of a pandemic and India is facing challenges at the border, the topic is truly apt. We look forward to listening to the ideas and the thoughts expressed by our chief guest, Mr. Dutt, and we hope that you will continue to remain associated with the Symbiosis International University and, of course, the law school. Let me also mention over here that one of the things that Dr. Gurpur mentioned is very dear to us, and that is our service learning component. Every institute of the university offers the student an opportunity to earn credits through service learning. We believe that this is a very important part of shaping them as individuals. Many of them come from very affluent families, and for them to understand that they need to have some concern for the less privileged is something that comes in the 5 years that they spend at the law school. This becomes a very critical component of their shaping their personality and making them who they are. When students pass out, we very often hear from them that the learnings that they had at the university really stand them in good stead and shape their personalities beyond what any other organization could have done. So let me once again, I know we have many speakers to speak, and we look forward to listening to each one of you. Mr. Dutt, thank you very much for taking the time out to be with us today. I look forward to listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. As I mentioned in the beginning, this public lecture is being organized in association with PCGT, and our bond with PCGT has grown stronger over the years. The Public Concern for Governance Trust has been doing great work, and I now request Mr. A.V. Krishnan, who's a retired IPS officer and a member of the PCGT, to introduce PCGT to all the audience. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. Friends, Edmund Burke said that the only requirement for bad people to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Some years ago in Mumbai, a few good people decided to act. The keen desire and commitment to the cause of good governance of late Dr. late B.G. Deshmukh, ex-cabinet secretary, is well known. He brought together other representatives of civil society like Dr. R.K. Anand, a well-known pediatrician, Mr. Julio Ribeiro of the IPS, and Mr. Narayan Verma, the late Mr. Narayan Verma, besides others. And formed Public Concern for Governance Trust, PCGT as it is known, in Mumbai in April 2002. As he loved this city, Mr. B.G. Deshmukh started a Pune chapter in May 2006. Its overarching goal is to goad the government and all institutions in the public sphere to give good governance, and its mission is to promote honesty, accountability, transparency in governance, and to make it a value-based, equitable, corruption-free, just and compassionate society. PCGT has done significant work in the field of RTI. Our efforts at promoting public awareness have covered fight against corruption, goading local bodies to give better service like in water supply, sanitation, protect open spaces from illegal encroachment, traffic issues, police reforms, elections, and importance of voting and using the vote responsibly. We have received support and encouragement in ample measure from the educational institutions in Pune, like ILS Law College, VIT, College of Engineering, and others. The generous support always extended to us by Symbiosis group of institutions. Today's webinar is an illustration of this. The support and encouragement received from Dr. Mujumdar, Dr. Ms. Yaravdekar, Dr. Ms. Rajni Gupta, Dr. Mrs. Gurpur, and other top functionaries and the staff of Symbiosis Law College have been invaluable. The munificence of a prominent citizen of this city, Mr. Cyrus Punawala, has helped the PCGT to extend assistance to rape victims. With good cooperation and assistance from Pune City Police, we have extended financial and other assistance to some selected rape victims. Issues impacting environment, water supply, garbage and waste management, challenges from rapidly growing urbanization, criminal justice system, etc. have been engaging our attention and will feature prominently in our future programs. The unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic has created challenges before us in carrying on our activities. Without being deterred, we have continued harnessing technology. We have taken up a program to enlist the assistance and services of student volunteers. Some students have already joined as campus ambassadors, and soon we will be launching schemes which will benefit PCGT, which will be of mutual benefit to PCGT and the students. With the objective of perpetuating the memory of our founder and to express our gratitude to him, organizing a late B.G. Deshmukh Memorial Lecture every year. Eminent civil servants and speakers have delivered talks on a wide-ranging issues. Today, Mr. Shekhar Dutt, IAS retired, former Defense Secretary and Governor of Chandigarh, will be addressing us. Expressing confidence that PCGT will continue to receive support and encouragement from the alert and active citizens of this lively city, I beg to take leave. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for providing a glimpse into some of the initiatives that PCGT has been engaged with. Thank you for giving us an introduction to PCGT and all that PCGT has been doing. I would now request Mr. Ajit Nimbalkar, who is a retired IS officer and a member of the PCGT, to give a brief introduction to late PG Deshmukh, in whose memory this public lecture series has been instated, and that has provided many the opportunity to hear on various governance-related themes over the past years. Our students have been the largest beneficiaries to gain from the experience of eminent people who have graced this public lecture. May I now request Mr. Ajit Nimbalkar to introduce or give an introduction to late Shri P.G. Deshmukh.
Thank you, Dr. Bindu. Good evening to all of you. Mr. B.G. Deshmukh was the founder of PCGT and an outstanding civil servant. He had many facets to his personality: a writer, a generous donor, etc. But I will speak only on two issues of his: the civil servant era and the activist era. Mr. Deshmukh belonged to the 1951 batch of the IS. Before independence, there was the Indian Civil Service, steel frame of India, which held the country together. And at that time, there was doubt whether that service should be continued or not. There were questions asked about the existing members of the Indian Civil Service as well as the new entrants to the IS. IS had a different role, a new role altogether, not only on getting the country together, but working with elected democratic leaders and on a part of development which started after independence. Mr. Deshmukh was allotted to the then Bombay state, subsequently Maharashtra, and he held important posts in during his tenure. But more than that, I think he established the validity of the service, the Indian administrative service, in its new role, working with the democratically elected leaders and the part of development and progress. And today, the IS has come to be established and is known to be one of the major agencies of the state. In the state, Mr. Deshmukh held important posts such as Secretary to Chief Minister, Municipal Commissioner Mumbai, and later on the Chief Secretary of the State House. But wherever he went, he established new precedents. When he became Secretary to the Chief Minister, he established a secretariat. Earlier, the Chief Minister had only a PS, as he called, Private Secretary to CM. He established the CM Secretariat. That even as Municipal Commissioner Mumbai, he contributed a lot, not only in the development of the state, but ensuring that the city remained clean and neat. Then he went to Government of India. He went first to the Home Ministry as Additional Secretary, and later on as Secretary Labour. He was Secretary for 4 years, quite a fairly long tenure. And as the Secretary Labour in 1985, he was Chairman of the governing body of the ILO. For the full 1 year, he was there as the Chairman of the governing body, and then came back to the state. Normally, as Chief Secretary Maharashtra, he would have retired. But in 1986, the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi chose him as Cabinet Secretary, and he moved to Delhi. Cabinet Secretary is the highest post in the civil service, and a post to which many of us aspire to. Mr. Deshmukh not only adorned this position with dignity and with respect, but he endeared himself so much that after retirement, the then Prime Minister chose him as Secretary to the Prime Minister. He headed the Prime Minister's Secretariat. He worked in that position not with one Prime Minister, but with 3 Prime Ministers. After Rajiv Gandhi, there was Mr. VP Singh, and then Mr. Chandrasekhar. He worked with all 3 of them, and then retired from government service. After retirement, he joined the Tata Board of Directors. He worked with them on the main body of the Tatas, with Tata Housing, and with Tata Institute of Social Sciences also. Subsequently, he didn't stop at that. He decided to play an important role in civic life, in public life. He was mainly of an activist. He started first in Mumbai, later on shifted to Pune. In Mumbai, he established not only the PCGT, but he was on the board of this Bombay Natural History Society. Then he was with NGOs like Agni. He was on the Prince of Wales Museum active role. Good governance was very close to his heart. And in all these positions, he tried to be an important role in ensuring that good governance was there in all spheres. In Agni, he took upon himself to file a case against the organization, political parties and other organizations, which indulged in organizing bunds. The prominent trade unions and political parties, which started Mumbai Band. For a whole day, the city was brought to heel. He went to the court and got a judgment in favor of good governance and fined a certain amount to the political parties. After that, the bunds that were established were there in the cities reduced considerably. Later on, he shifted to Pune, and in Pune again, he not only established a branch of PCGT, he started Janwani also, and many other organizations. He was a very generous donor to many causes. He didn't advertise that. Very few people know about it, but he gave a lot of money to certain causes and organizations which he believed were playing a good role. He wrote a lot of books also, memoirs, mainly as cabinet secretary. One of his books was, of course, from Pune to Prime Minister's office. He was basically from Pune. He was educated in Pune itself, and then later on, his center of activity was Mumbai, and then Delhi also. So his memoirs cover his activities in all these three cities, and his memoirs are worth reading to any aspiring civil servant. He was also a strong believer in ensuring that the administration worked to the cause of the public, and right, whether it was right to service or right to information, etc. He was very active in that and ensured that the ordinary citizen got justice. Though he achieved a lot in his career, his personal life, unfortunately, had many tragedies. He lost his first wife quite early in life. He had one daughter. His first daughter passed away. Then he married a second time. But his daughter, who was in her 20s, in, I think, 1989, passed away with a sudden illness. He was a shaken man. I was in Delhi at that time. I was in the Ministry of Labour, Government of India. Personally was witness to his coming down from the helicopter. He was in Pune when this happened. And in fact, he was so shaken, Rajiv Gandhi had to help him to walk a few steps. Only child, she passed away at that time. And he recovered from that, in spite of that, and immersed himself to the activities that were very close to his heart. Later on, his second wife also passed away. And in his last few years, he was a lonely man. Traveling between Mumbai and Pune, he shifted to Pune in Magarpatastri, passed away in 2011 in Noble Hospital. And I was there at the funeral. Many NGOs and activists were there paying tributes to him. And his memory remains very much alive to all of us. The cause which was so dear to his heart is carried on by organizations like PCGT and institutions like Symbiosis. We salute this man for the life that he led and for the work that he did. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. This public lecture is a celebration of all what Vijay Deshmukh sir did. We at the law school capture all that we do at the law school into a little bi-yearly publication where we capture the activities and events at the law school, the achievements of our students and staff in various things which include research, participation in conference and seminars, debates, moot courts, etc. It gives a glimpse of the vibrancy of the law school. I now request our chief guest, Mr. Shekhar Dutt, to release the last leg set, which we were unable the previous semester due to the pandemic. We thought this is an occasion where we can release the leg set. I request Shekhar Dutt sir to release the leg set. And joining sir in the release of the leg set, we will have Rajni Gupte ma'am, Nagpal sir, and Gurpur ma'am. Shekhar sir, can we have you show the booklet? Your microphone is on mute mode. So your microphone
Your
is on
phone
mute.
is muted. Your microphone is muted. Amit, can you remove that? Yeah.
Shekhar sir, your
Shekhar sir,
microphone is muted. Can you unmute yourself and release the booklet by showing it up?
Amit, try to do it.
Amit, why don't you
Ma'am.
unmute?
I did it, ma'am.
No, it's muted still.
That sir's mic is not unmuted. Please do it. Or guide him.
I think we have some problem in having Shekhar Dutt sir now.
Someone who's the host can do that.
Yeah, SLS is the host.
Whoever is the host can unmute him.
Ma'am, I did it, but he's not able to see us also.
Oh, we can see him.
Yeah, that's what, but I'm on the phone with sir only.
Ah.
Why don't you ask him to log in all over again?
That's what, ma'am. That's what I told sir.
Sometimes technology fails, and I think this is one of the occasion where we have a little bit of a technical hitch. I'm sure we're going to overcome this very soon.
Yeah, you have to have patience. Yeah.
Now, no.
Yes, now we can hear you, sir.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm audible now.
Yes. Great.
Strange are the ways of digital. Okay.
So can we request you to
Unveil it.
Unveil it by opening the
Wrapper.
removing the wrapper, the ribbon,
And then hold the book toward. Yeah, thank you. Wonderful.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. And maybe also have Gupte ma'am, Nagpal sir, and Gurpur ma'am joining in the release of the leg set. Thank you, sir.
And I also honor the ingenuity of the person who brought it to me. Great.
Thank you. We're all very anxiously waiting to hear Mr. Shekhar deliver the lecture on the theme of national security and good governance. Before that, before I request our chief guest to deliver the public lecture, I request Mr. Dodd, who is a retired IAS officer and a member of the PCGT, to give an introduction to the theme and introduce our chief guest. Over to you, Mr. Dodd.
Friends, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my fellow colleague from the IAS, the earlier governor of Chhattisgarh, Shri Shekhar Dutt, and the earlier Deputy National Security Advisor to the Government of India. Shri Dutt was commissioned in the 1967 in the Indian Army and he was awarded the Sena Medal for fighting in the 71 Indo-Pak War. He then joined the IAS in 1973 when we were both trained at Mussoorie in the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy. He was allotted the Madhya Pradesh cadre. As you know, most of the career of an IAS officer, first 15 years is in the districts and in the regions. So Shri Shekhar Dutt also did his first stint in Morena district, fighting the dacoits in Chambal and Bukdel in Morena. Then he was Commissioner of Raipur, and later he headed the State Department of Education, Sports, Tribal Welfare, and as Principal Secretary. On moving to the Government of India, Shri Dutt was Joint Secretary Defence in the Ministry of Defence, and later he was Director General Sports Authority of India, Secretary Health, and then Secretary Defence Production, like he was predecessor to Mr. Ajit Nimbarkar as Secretary Defence Production. I think it is a record in the Indian Army and in the civil service that an officer has served both in the Army as well as in the civil service and risen to the position of Defence Secretary. After retirement, he served as Deputy National Security Advisor, and then he was appointed as Governor of Chhattisgarh from 2010 to 2014. Mr. Shekhar Dutt has been awarded the honorary doctorate by the University of Swansea as well as by the University of Engineering and Management, Calcutta. He has to his credit the Paul Appleby Award for Outstanding Service in Public Administration given by the IITA Delhi. Shri Dutt is on the board of the South Asia Foundation, IIPA, Harijan Sevak Sangh, Chanakya Center for Strategic Studies, and he's also the DG of Solar Power Development Association, as well as he was on the board of DeSalle University in the USA. Friends, the topic selected for the PG Memorial Lecture this year is National Security and Good Governance. With the situation on the borders being what it is, I'm sure national security is on everybody's minds today. While we are all proud of the professionalism and achievements of our armed forces, the institutions of good governance within the country have been a matter of concern. And by that, what is meant are the three wings: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. But since the focus of PCGT and the career of Shri PG Deshmukh was in the executive branch, we are concentrating more on the executive side of the district, as you know, is the unit of administration in India, and the post of the district magistrate is crucial in the scheme of things. Rajiv Gandhi, as Prime Minister, used to summarize the chain of command as PM, CM, and DM, meaning Prime Minister, Chief Minister, and District Magistrate. Whether it is COVID, whether it is a natural disaster, whether it is elections, he is the key person who calls the shots and on whom depends success or failure of tackling the problem situation. Since the key district officers like DM, SP, DFO are mandated by the Constitution to be from the All India services, it is very important that the recruitment, training, tenure, promotion of these services is streamlined. For this purpose, we had the Administrative Reforms Commission report, and we have several Supreme Court judgments on how to improve the recruitment, training, tenure, promotions of the All India service. Mr. PG Deshmukh was known as a Karam Yogi, and recently the Government of India started this scheme of the civil servant as Karam Yogi. Mr. Shekhar Dutt, with his rich experience in managing internal and external security problems, will be delivering this important lecture to us on national security and good governance. I welcome Shekhar Dutt to the lecture. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will not stand between the audience and the speaker, as I'm myself very keenly waiting to hear Mr. Shekhar Dutt. I invite you, sir, to deliver the lecture now.
Thank you very much. At first, let me pay my respect to Sri B.G. Deshmukh, and on whose name this memorial address, a yearly memorial address has been instituted. Before that, I must acknowledge my batchmate and friend, Mr. Satyabir Dodds, words of praise and also bringing everybody to know me. I must also uh, acknowledge Mr. Nimbalkar, who was, uh, in fact, I've succeeded him by one person in between as Secretary Ministry of Defense, Defense Production. And also Dr. Rajni Gupte and Dr. Shashikala Gurpur for all introductory speeches that you made and brought me at par with this program. And this program is indeed one of the most prestigious program, I am absolutely sure. But before that, I would like to also say that it's also a tribute to all those people from different services in at Pune, and who have instituted this kind of a program, and also these many programs which this trust is handling. This is a huge support to the state government and indeed to the administration of India, because you are doing enormous, you're playing your own bit. Even after many people have left the services, they are actively connected with what is known as governance, what is known as bringing in knowledge in order to have the governance at par with the time and move along with the time. So with this, I start the address as this function has been organized to pay respect to Sri B.G. Deshmukh, who has been acknowledged by all as the administrator par excellence, an IAS officer who has, amongst many posts that he had held, been Chief Secretary of Maharashtra, Secretary Ministry of Labour, Chairman of the Governing Board of the International Labour Organization, Cabinet Secretary, and Principal Secretary to 3 consecutive Prime Ministers. He has also headed many NGOs such as Galwani and Bombay Natural History Society. He was also President and Trustee of organizations like the KEM Hospital, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya, Mohalla Committee Movement Trust. He was by all accounts a model administrator who has left his mark at every organization that he has led. He is indeed a role model for all civil servants working anywhere in India. I honor him even more because of his important contribution to the Bombay Natural History Society. As a conservation and wildlife enthusiast, I find his work for BNHS extremely fascinating. He was indeed the right person to guide the society after the departure of Dr. Salim Ali, and I pay my sincere respects to him and thank the public concern of Governance Trust and the Symbiosis Law School for giving me the opportunity. There's a strong link between national security and good governance. If security is not maintained, governance cannot be delivered. Similarly, security cannot be safeguarded if governance is delivered in an inefficient or corrupt manner. Internal threats of India have been summed up by calling them P3C4 factors, namely population, poverty, pollution, corruption, communalism, casteism, and criminalization. Challenges to India's security and integrity can come from both outside and within. Geostrategic ambitions, including economic interests of other nations, can pose a danger to our society. Today, the global security environment is in a state of flux. There are several old as well as emerging issues which continue to pose serious challenges to the stability of regions of in close proximity of India. New challenges like food security, energy security, and water security will emerge. These will pose far greater challenges than what we face today. The great experiment of the past century was a struggle of the Indian people to seek their social and economic salvation within the framework of plural and liberal democracy. The idea of unity in diversity and the philosophical tradition that it, re- inspired it remain our great inheritance. People seek well-being and sustainable livelihoods, but they also seek fundamental freedoms. People want jobs, education, housing, and healthcare, but they also want open societies and open economics. People seek freedom from tyranny in all its manifestation. They wish to be governed by the rule of law. This has been the Indian ethos. We obviously have to pay the price in terms of slower and economic growth and efficiency. But we have gained as a free people. Let us never belittle our achievements nor our ambition in this regard. Winston Churchill had said at the height of the Second World War, empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. In saying so, he had recognized the importance of knowledge in determining the destiny of nations. It is therefore both relevant and contextual that the intellectual, cultural, social, economic, and political empowerment of individuals is the basis on which India will continue to grow. This defines our second ambition for this century. India will not only be the land of a free people, but of a knowledge-empowered people. The light of knowledge needs to touch every child and empower every citizen. In this COVID period, the global economy is going through choppy waters. However, I'm sure we will survive and this crisis and emerge stronger. This so-called Asian century will be shaped by how we respond to this economic crisis today. The world has become more integrated and interdependent. Therefore, we cannot wish away this linkage. In both good and bad, in prosperity and peril, in opportunity and crisis, we must recognize the fact that we are not an island unto ourselves. That, however, does not mean that we pay the price of profligacy of the rich or the delinquency of a few. Governance, which you have chosen as a part of your theme, therefore, will need to be more inclusive. Caution in the field of economic activity should never be allowed to come in the way of our boundless ambitions. In fact, ambition is a necessary part of progress. As an example, the Indian achievement of the nuclear and space front, and indeed our missile development program, have come about through setting ourselves ambitious goals in the most advanced field of scientific endeavor. In fact, I'm happy to say that I have learned an enormous lot from such ambitious people, some people who have led India and with examples, but however, taken very ambitious steps, like Dr. Kalam, who was given the target of of developing India's missile. At that time, no country was willing to give us any technology. And we not only developed missile, I was associated in that as a director in the Ministry of Defense and looking after the integrated guided missile development project. We even developed the engine, which was extremely difficult, to propel the rocket. Now, no country, as I said, was willing to give this technology. And we developed all our space, missile development, even the atomic energy. And we were very poor at that time. We were on a poorer and less developed country. Many mocked at us that you won't be able to do. However, our achievement today mock at the cynicism of the non-believers. Circumstances of today seek a similar ambition. The Indian mind is comfortable with change. The Indian entrepreneurs and professionals have leveraged change and created wealth and employment on an unprecedented scale. Before I come to the specifics of some suggestions about the way ahead in this crisis, let me touch on a comparison which is often made. The largest uncertainty that is expressed in various ways is about the ability of India to emulate China's sustained economic dynamism. The disadvantage that are spoken about relate to internal strains within our society, lesser pragmatism in economic policy, the pressures of populist decisions within our democratic system, and disparity amongst various layers of our society. While these may also be up for debate, but the Indian strengths have been tested over a period of time and have in fact reached a stage of being beyond argument. India has a vigorous high technology sector supported by high quality academic institutions. It enjoys a functioning legal system that can protect property and financial rights. India will not face an aging population problem at least the next 2 or 3 decades, and will in fact leverage this human resource as a demographic dividend. Most importantly, India has a political system that is not threatened by opening itself to the world. It has a legal infrastructure in place that can even help privatize various state-owned industries. Now, and organizations like yours, Symbiosis Law School, play a major role in training these entrants into the different system, whether it is legal or administrative. Our traditional security concept, our traditional security concerns stem from the situation existing in our neighborhood across our borders with China and Pakistan. These concerns are accentuated by military trends and strategic thought as enunciated by the political and military leadership of our neighbors. Though Pakistan, after a long gap, renews its experiment with democracy, the continuing power struggle between the political parties, mullahs, and the army, the near total breakdown of law and order in the FATA region, highlights the fragile nature of this experiment. Through successive governments, Pakistan's Kashmir policy and its policy of carrying out subversion acts and terrorism within India, directly or through proxy, remains unchanged. An unstable nuclear weapons capable Pakistan remains a constant security concern. And who else but the Bombayites would understand how this low intensity warfare is played by the Pakistanis. And in order to put India in a problem, in a nuclearized environment, while the threat of war is remote, it cannot be ruled out. In fact, we need to be prepared to fight limited war below the nuclear threshold. And all the time, our nuclear establishment will have to remain alert. As the Kargil episode demonstrated, the Pakistani strategic establishment may not shy away from inflicting such wars to us. The capabilities and doctrines required to manage warfare under these circumstances would place a different set of demands on our military establishment. At the same time, Pakistan has improved its conventional weapon capabilities and defenses along the border. It is aggressively trying to acquire sophisticated weaponry. As Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has said, our relationship with China has been complex in recent decades, but we have historic responsibility to turn this relationship into a source of strength for each other and a force of good for the world. In fact, India went ahead and met China more than half the way in order to be a partner for good of the world. However, India and China share a 3,488-kilometer long boundary. This line, which delineates border between the two countries and popularly known as McMahon line, is disputed by the Chinese. And this boundary came into existence after in 1962, they launched a war. And a new line of boundary came into being. It was called LAC, Line of Actual Control. And this is a military held line. It's not the McMahon line, but it's a military held line. China claims the region of Aksai Chin and much of Arunachal Pradesh to be part of their territory and wants to acquire the whole of Galwan Valley, including its mountain ranges. In May 2020, China tried to enter the region of Aksai Chin that lay on India's side of the LAC. This was not allowed by the patrolling Indian forces and Chinese were driven back. Higher officials of both the forces decided to follow protocols to ensure peace. However, China did not follow the mandate, which led to the altercation of the in Galwan Valley, and India lost 20 lives of their soldiers. The Doklam region has been particularly a sensitive area in the Indo-China clashes ever since the 2017 military standoff. Acquiring an undisputed position in Doklam would allow Chinese troops to have a strategic advantage over their Indian and Bhutanese counterpart. It will also provide them with a pathway to the Chumbi Valley and Siliguri corridor. In fact, it's a very thin corridor which separates Nepal and Bangladesh with India. It's called Siliguri corridor. And the Chinese can have a free this thing if they ingress at Doklam. Now, this will need to be protected by India. No way the Chinese can get any closer. And therefore, this issue has not seen much progress, despite a lot of diplomatic dialogue which is going on. So far, there have been two informal summits between the Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, and the President of the People's Republic of China, Mr. Xi Jinping. India and China have signed several agreements to maintain peace and bilateral relations at the border. Now, at the trade and economic sector, India's trade with China last year was $81 billion, of which India's import was $65 billion. So it's heavily in favor of the Chinese. Now, despite that, the Chinese organized this clash. The clash of Galwan Valley is nearly 45 years after the line of actual control was violated. And the first clash in so many years. Both India and China have emphasized the need for an expeditious and phased de-escalation as a priority. However, this seems to be extremely difficult considering the recent altercation on 31st August 2020. Our action must therefore be guided by Chinese capabilities and not by their stated intention. We need to keep in mind the rapid modernization of the military forces currently underway in, in China. And China is rapidly trying to uh, develop its capabilities in all three, Army, Navy, and Air Force. And so we have to be aware of that. Also to concern to us is the ongoing nuclear cooperation between China and Pakistan. China has assisted Pakistan in almost every area of nuclear and missile development, including enrichment, uh, from the uranium, and and taking that into the nuclear weaponry development, reprocessing, weaponization, missile development and delivery, and command and control. So it's almost in all sectors of nuclear warfare, China has assisted Pakistan. Despite China having joined the NSG, I mean, here is China is a member of the NSG, China is also a member of the MTCR, and yet it is doing this thing because it does have a power of vote in the Security Council. In China's South Asia policy, its defense relationship with India's other um, neighbors, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, is also a source of concern for us because China has done some certain amount of investment. China has also played a part in their modernization of the defense forces and also given extensive financial assistance. It is clear now that India has to prepare for a two-front war. Two-front war meaning if there is any escalation against Pakistan, we have to be prepared that China may also take part, and therefore we have to be prepared for a two-front war. India has to have adequate and right equipment for our land, sea, and air operations. The acquisition of weapons and allied equipment needs to be done, therefore, in a tri-service mode, that is Army, Navy, and Air Force. We cannot just hope to play a major part if it is land, that by the land forces. We have to immediately be prepared to play that our Air Force plays a part, our Navy plays a part. The armed forces of India, to my mind, are the most efficient organization that I have experienced. In fact, their efficiency is unparalleled in the world. And we have seen it not only in the deployment of the armed forces during the natural calamities, but also when the armed forces have done the same kind of work outside of India. When the terrible tsunami came in 2005, I was there, I was the defense secretary, and we organized far away from India. We organized help in Indonesia. And then our Navy, Air Force all played a major part, very major part, including our armed forces doctors who went deep inside Indonesia. Now, and the world knows about it. We even sent 2 planes to Katrina in United States when that hurricane happened in the southern United States, and we even gave assistance to United States. Of course, at other places, Philippines and Sri Lanka, many other places, Thailand, Indian forces have gone and given assistance. Now, armed forces, therefore, whatever amount of replenishment or new weaponry or new equipment are given, they deploy it extremely well. But our job is that we must ensure that it's done in a tri-service manner. We put the armed forces in the fighting state all the time. In fact, now the new appointment of CDS is a very welcome state because the CDS will have a single point of command and control. And like I said, we have to be prepared for tri-service operations. So command and control over all the three services can be exercised in a singularly by the CDS. And the CDS being there is an extremely important uh, step. Having been the forward observation officer and the authorized OP of the 11th Infantry Div during the 1971 war, I can understand the requirement of jointness in war. The Army, Navy, Air Force all fighting together, and even in a desert operation, we had the Army and the Air Force fighting together, and the Navy giving us a help from the sea. And you must recall that the Navy played they bombed, they fired missiles on the Karachi harbor. So jointness is extremely important. The job of the authorized OP officer was to be able to bring our artillery fire from any artillery regiment or the Air Force fire. Now, this along with another period of my work with the Ministry of Defense when I was Director Navy. At that time, we decided that the Navy should be a blue water Navy. And that enabled Navy to have its presence in all the seas. And again, we became part of the Law of the Seas of the United Nations by putting a station in Antarctic, which is called Dakshin Gangotri. Now, all these things were because our Navy took the step in being able to patrol and take up different tasks in different seas. So the same thing, same Indian Navy provides the maximum amount of patrolling in the Indian Ocean, and we have to be prepared for deployment of Navy, even if we have a land skirmish at the Himalayas. So, and then the Air Force, with the capability of air-to-air refueling, which allows our aircrafts to go to seemingly impossible distances, and then air-to-ground and air-to-air missile launching capabilities has made Air Force able to take up any target with devastating effect anywhere. And that is again very important for tri-service operation. Let me now come to the specifics of global financial crisis and how it is affecting individuals, organizations, and India as a country. At the individual level, the people have suffered huge losses and are losing hope in the system. Organizationally, banks and financial institutions that support economic activity have been impacted in a manner that global linkages may have caused a temporary setback, but our fundamentals will ensure that the global path will undoubtedly continue. This is not simply just a rhetoric. Our context is different from that of the developed world or even with China. You know, our domestic requirement is so high that we are not dependent on export. So we produce and our domestic need, our domestic requirement increases. And that is one of the biggest say benefit of putting India into the path of development through a good and able center and state partnership. India should be the obvious choice in a situation where the world is looking for safe and growing investment opportunities. India has the capacity to produce goods involving a reasonable level of technology and also consume such products. It is not surprising that profitability of the foreign investors in India has grown despite the global situation of financial depression. India is therefore a destination of profitability. India also continues to remain immune from the possibility of any change in the political orientation. We will remain democratic and we will continue to have an environment of financial propriety that is overseen by an internationally recognized legal framework. And again, like I said, organizations like Symbiosis Law School play a major part, a very important part in building up the young people who will be such part of such legal framework. The problems of the distributive part of the economy can be resolved by investing the surpluses in the sector that will improve the quality of life of our people. Despite a huge leap forward in the last decade, India still remains relatively poor, albeit with a tremendous potential to be rich. We now have to plan for prosperity for all, rather than work for poverty alleviation. Planning for prosperity necessarily brings a paradigm shift in our approach. In order to be able to do so, we shall have to ensure that all backward and forward linkages are identified and catered for. It is the same, in the same vein, let me also mention the careless attitude, which is rather disappointing, about our use of public resources, be it water, energy, public utilities, public services, and natural resources. All segments of the society take them for granted and have little concern for these. I would even call it the profligacy of the poor. Our poor meaning all of us. We are average, we are poor people, and we do not have the, do not feel that these sectors require to be honored. Water, for example, very, very badly treated. In this account, there is a responsibility, huge responsibility to the bright officers who constitute the All India services. They played and continue to play a huge charge of discharging massive role in the governance of India at the national, state, district, and taluka level. There is no other system in the world which has, over the different sectors, different administrative silos, different administrative mechanism of center, state, local, district, and then local. No other place in the government. I have traveled in Soviet Union and Russia intensively. And during the period when Soviet Union collapsed and Russia began its journey, and I found that how difficult it became for the Russian administration to administer local places because they didn't have that ability. And therefore, large numbers of them, in fact, lost everything. And this didn't happen in the Indian change when it happened in 1991, when I was in the government of India, and we went into a new gear of changing the industrial policy of India in 1991, and the entire say Indian policies at that time changed from a restrictive economy to an expanding economy. And India could do it because India has the ability to bring in the change and that too through a very organized manner. And therefore, this administrative system requires to be understood and kept because there is no other country in the world which has the diversity which India has. You know, from Portugal to Finland, or from the Greek or Turkey to Norway. How many different countries are there? How many different races are there? and they constitute different countries of Europe. It is same in India.
अब ठीक था अब
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Thanks. So with that diversity, we have to have a seam which keeps on putting all of us together. And that is done by this administration. However, difficulty it might have been in, and we can recognize this kind of capability when there is a disaster. Then immediately everything falls in place. And we have to see that they are able to do their job. However, this body has to be, it is absolutely necessary that this body should be always effective and discharge its duties without fear or favor, entirely for the public good, maintaining the rule of law. The Chief Secretary of the state and the Cabinet Secretary at the center play the central role to keep the machinery functioning at the most efficient level by timely coordination and troubleshooting, and wherever the need arises, causing a systemic change in the environment. Needless to say, in this process, the Chief Secretary and the Cabinet Secretary, wherever necessary, should keep the highest level of political part of the executive, namely Chief Minister or the Prime Minister, apprised and obtain decisions of the Cabinet or of the concerned committee of the Cabinet wherever necessary. So basically, it's a how do you draft the law and the regulation and bring all these things if there is requirement of change. And change, ladies and gentlemen, I think is an essentially requirement. And for a country like India, we have to be continuously moving from time to another time with bringing the instruments of change and seeing that change can be adopted with the least pain. There should not be any shortcut or ad hocism in administering the rule of law. Similarly, there is a great merit if administrators at the district or at the regional level make a habit of having first-hand information of the problem by visiting the spot. In Persian, it is called Mauka Muayana. In English, it is called spot inspection. And I found that spot inspection changes the attitude of everybody, including the opposite lawyer, when he goes. And many times I used to say that, all right, instead of taking the hearing in my court, let us go to the spot. And sometimes it was so extraordinary that one advocate, who was a very leading advocate of Madhya Pradesh, and whose son later on became the Chief Justice of Chhattisgarh, he came and he saw and the spot, and he says, no, I was under a wrong impression. I have no arguments to give. And so the case was closed in favor of the person who had appealed. So this is kind of importance which spot inspection can play. And another very important characteristic of the local administration, and I would say even at the topmost level, is the ability to hear. The ability to hear. We cannot redeem all the pains of everybody. But if we are able to hear, then half the pain is gone. But then if we are able to hear, we also are able to find a way out. And the job of the administration in a very large level is to manage the difficulties of people and manage the problems of the people. And we have to be able to understand their problem and their pain. In macroeconomics, our infrastructure has to be seen in terms of physical financial, and intellectual capital. Institutionally, we all have all the elements that support a high growth pattern. It is therefore not surprising that we have had no systemic problem in ingesting the growth that we have witnessed over the past few years. So India, as you know, was a very high growth economy for quite some time. But we have not seen a problem in absorbing the high growth. So obviously, the capacity of Indian economy and Indian people is very high. So we can move from part growth to a very rapid growth in a short time. The Indian intellectual capital is also obvious from the knowledge-based segment of our economy or our services sector that has contributed to the growth profile. In terms of physical infrastructure too, the nation has committed itself to improvement, huge improvement. And I am, even now I'm part of this because, say this year, we plan to have 15,000 megawatts of solar and wind power being brought into the capacity. By about 2022, we will have 100 gigawatts of solar and 75 gigawatts, that means 100,000 megawatts of solar power and 75,000 megawatts of wind power put in. And I was in the COP21 deliberations in Paris in 2015, where our Honorable Prime Minister on the final day said that we, India, will have 40% of our entire energy needs met from the renewable energy sector by 2030. That's a very tall claim, but it is going to be done. You know, the whole thing is that India has the capacity and India has the ability. So it's very exciting. Our other sectors of infrastructure have also received attention. National highways, 30 kilometers of dual carriageway every day. There's no other project in the world which is of such mega proportion. Airports and seaports. These have also seen massive investment and our progress is visible to the world. Now, there is a need to move away from resting our growth on the services sector. The manufacturing sector needs now to take the lead. We may not immediately be in a position to produce very high-end products, but we definitely can start with the value addition. Our huge workforce with adequate knowledge capital can allow us to capitalize on a win-win situation. An assured profitability, a cheap workforce that is adequately trained, and existence of all the elements of demand and supply leave no doubt India being a preferred destination. Our genius of application has to be leveraged to seek development of newer and high-end products, including pharmaceuticals and other engineering goods. Brand India needs to be marketed in this manner. From the viewpoint of Indian economy, it is undeniable that Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India both are desirable steps. Our academic institutions need to be part of the solution. The model for success needs an orientation towards prosperity creation that involves back-end and front-end linkages in terms of skill, expertise in areas of finance, technology, marketing, and other management sector, including legal, and they are needed for any successful enterprise. Our investment in elite institutions like IITs, IIMs, NITs, NLUs, medical institutions, and a large number of public and private, good public and private universities are now in a position to pay back. It is the alumni of these institutions which have created conditions of growth within India. In a situation of global recession, India can build on this relationship by leveraging this capacity and use the bridge between the institutions and their alumni to provide requisite boost to our manufacturing sector. A time has come when bright Indian entrepreneurs and even more bright young pioneers should start seizing new opportunities. For example, a mega project of India, like that of National Highway that I referred earlier, which is building more than 30 kilometers dual carriageway every day, which takes 8 axle, 10 axle, 12 axle vehicles, very large. These are called juggernauts. They are flying. We ought to be now moving forward to manufacture them. And the moment we start manufacturing the whole or parts of these large juggernauts, we would be able to manufacture our own tank, because tanks are a little more than these kind of juggernaut. It requires that kind of engine, it requires that kind of suspension, and it requires the ability to be of modern technology. Now, we ought to take the advantage of this. Similarly, I've been seeing over a period of time in all the major aviation rallies, whether it is Farnborough or Le Bourget in France, Indian aviation companies buy the largest numbers of Boeing or Airbuses. But it's a tragedy that we don't have a single place where we do the MRO of either the engine or superstructure. The French were very keen that we do it. All others, Boeing also would be were very keen that we do it. Now, the advantages of when we do MROs is that we can then know everything how to manufacture engines and all the spare parts. There are tens of thousands of spare parts in an aircraft, and we should be making those things. Now, why I'm saying all these things is because these are dual.
पापा फोन आ रहा है.
These are dual ability, and the moment we can move into restrictive areas on our own. When I finished the Indo-US framework for defense negotiations in 2005, we were told that Japan is keen, Germany is keen, because with Germany or Japan or Australia, we didn't have any defense cooperation. So I went over to Japan, negotiated that. At the time, the Japanese showed me that they had an ability to do MRO of the civil aviation planes. And can you imagine 2005, that organization had a turnover of $15 billion. So that is how industrial capacities are built. And if you start from those, you'll be able to build a whole lot of things. And we ought to do that. We have 4 income deciles which have to be put into these kind of activities in manufacturing. And therefore, I think that the very major role of India's development should proceed now with India moving on to become a manufacturing nation. The Indian opportunity in this period of global challenge comes from our capable human resources. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy that I'm with an organization I'm there who is developing the capable human resources. Profitability due to our internal market. The internal market is always eager to lap up whatever is produced and also has a demand for better quality. Value addition opportunities, if there is any requirement, people go out of the way, and we have people from Northeast going to Kerala to do value addition and like. And the cost advantage, So at a much lesser cost, we are able to do. We have got all the characteristics of becoming a good economy of manufacturing. And then we have got our services sector. So in that way, 8 income deciles, there's a very huge population, can be catered for. And that is what India requires to do so in order to be able to be amongst the top a few countries. These are indeed very exciting times. Your students are moving on to these exciting times, and I'm sure that they will have far more excitement than what we had in our time. And I'm sure that the enterprising and intrepid people that you churn out, you put out, will be able to seize those opportunities and be our leaders who will then take India into the next generation of development, and which will be this time at the top of the world. So with that, I again pay my homage to C.D. Deshmukh, B.G. Deshmukh, and to also all the others of who have been associated with your both the organizations. I have immense respect for the stalwarts who have been associated with this, and also thanks, immense thanks to giving me this opportunity to address you. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir. You have mesmerized us with the range of activities that you've been engaged with and the eloquence with which you brought it out in this public lecture, taking us from military security to financial security to security of resources to the strength of the country and governance. I hope this is only a beginning of a long association with you, and we are able to have you at Symbiosis to address students on various themes and issues in future. Thank you, sir, for this lecture.
Thank you.
I will now request Mr. Nagpal, who is a retired IRS officer and the president of PCGT, to deliver the presidential address before we go to the question answers.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yeah, okay. First of all, I must place on record my appreciation of Mr. Shekhar Dutt for having come all the way to deliver this address over here, the annual address in B.G. Deshmukh memory. And we are also very happy to have heard him speak on a very wide range of the subject that was given to him today, which is not an easy subject. National security is a very tricky subject, and so is good governance. How to achieve good governance is not a small job. It has to take so many people who are associated with you to get along and carry on the job that has been defined and has to be completed. So I am very grateful to Mr. Shekhar Dutt. I am also grateful to our Satyabir Dodd to have invited him to come here to be able to address us on this lecture. Now, more important is that we need to push this matter of internal security, the national security, to the theme of patriotism. We know all of us that we have had so many sacrifices given by so many people, thousands of people in fact, who got us freedom, ultimately, which we got on 15th of August, 1947. But we need to nurture it, need to preserve it, need to take it forward so that everybody in this country has pride in our country, has contribution to make to that same very pride, and we should also feel that the, not only the stalwarts, the leaders, but even the common man has to be ready to give sacrifices, contribute his might to see to it that we uh, achieve that station in the world scenario. I would feel, therefore, that Mr. Shekhar Dutt was a great choice to have been brought today for delivering this lecture. I would very much like that we should place on record his immense commitment and contribution in the field of security towards building a very patriotic nation that we are and we should be. And therefore, I feel that I have hardly much to say except that we are grateful to Symbiosis Law School, Mrs. Gurpur, Mrs. Bindu Ronald, and the rest of the gang of uh, the faculty as well as the administrative side of Symbiosis Law School to have helped us to be able to have this lecture today. And we have been waiting for this, but unfortunately for us, COVID came right in our way. Of all the things, only at the time when we were scheduled to have this lecture, COVID has been creating problems for us. Thank God we have been able to overcome, thanks to the enterprise of Symbiosis Law School and the team that handles it. And ultimately, we have been able to succeed in this. That's also a tribute to our Symbiosis Law School enterprise. I must say that our association with them will continue to nurture further and take us to the kind of heights that we want as a nation to achieve. That's all I thought I would like to say today. Thank you so much for everybody to have joining the enterprise and to be able to look forward to our further achievements in together with Symbiosis Law School as well as PCGT together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now for the awaited part after such a wonderful lecture, the question answer session. We have received a large number of questions and we will try to address as many questions as is possible, but however, we have a paucity of time. I now request Mr. Satish Kaur, Vice President, PCGT, to take over and moderate the question answer session. Over to you, Kaur sir.
Thank you, Bindu. Mr. Shekhar Dutt, we got lots of questions that have come up, and we have passed on a few to you, and others have come in also. We have a very little time, so let's put it succinctly, and I'll start immediately on that. What I'm going to try to do is to club similar questions together, and we can work from there onwards. So the first question came from one of the students, and I think it is worth the while reading it up. Justice Madan Lokur expressed his concerns over the rampant use of draconian laws, such as the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, to subvert free speech and criticism against governmental institutions in India, while providing national security concerns as justification. What are your views on this?
I understand the concern, but what I think is that the executive has a right to bring in laws. In fact, in order to move into areas which the executive thinks that it is important for either national security or for any other purpose. Now, the requirement is that of dialogue. So even if there is a feeling of certain amount of transgression into people's own rights, I think there has to be a much bigger dialogue, and by knowledgeable people, and the communication channels must be kept open, and therefore now in the parliament you have the parliamentary committees. Now those are the places where the parliamentarians, and if properly briefed, and then continuous dialogue. So even after a law has been enacted, there have been amendments to in order to see that undue pain is not received by people. Now, I think this kind of communication is required, and in a democratic system, it has to be continuous, and we must understand that the executive has the ability to also listen, and I think it is that ability that we should be able to make use of. So wherever the shoe is pinching, the people who wear it should now sit down and discuss and communicate, because people must understand that at no stage communication by outsiders or those who are not connected will be good for anybody. So people who are connected, and they should be able to move, and everybody has a place where he or she or they, they belong. Say, for example, if they're from a constituency. Now, the constituents themselves exercise a right over the elected person. So the elected rep, if he's a good or she's a good elected person, would have an ear to listen to their constituents. And through their constituents, you can put information onto the elected person. So what I'm saying is the channels of rectification are there inbuilt in our legislative system, and which should be taken use of.
I won't respond to that, but I'll just take on the next one. You have been the governor of Chhattisgarh. Now, the role of the governor is under question. 2 or 3 questions have come on that. It's the role of the function of the governor has been to defend, protect, and preserve the essence of constitution. But what has been happening is it seems to be under control of the party in the central government. So what do you think about the role of the governor should be?
I think the question of maturity of the individual and of the system. Now, it will be always that the governor would be a nominee of the central government. So if the state government is, and the constitute is the same as the central government, it's all right. But many times the state government might be of a different party or different lot of people. Now, I think it's the maturity of the people at both the levels to be able to, there would be differences, and again the communication. So in my stay, there was never any occasion when I or the CM, Dr. Raman Singh, differed. But countless times we sat down together and brought the same, decision. Now, it can be, say, appointments of vice chancellor or appointments of chancellor in case of where the governor is a visitor, appointments of judges, high court judges to Supreme Court, or district judges or district attorney, or from the lawyers to high court. Now, these are not very easy decisions, but the governor and the CM can meet and talk and come out with an agreed. And that's what we did. So I think one may be representing 2 different interests, but the outcome could be easily the one, the single outcome. So it can be done. It's a question of how mature you are.
What you said basically is that there should be maturity both from the governor's side and the chief minister's side to be able to go on. Aapke muh mein ghee shakkar, sir. I'm jumping a little more further. That's it. Government in 2019 expressed its intention to recruit private sector professionals for selecting administrative posts. How do you think this will affect the civil services?
Actually, this has not been done just now. This has been done earlier also. Now, I know many people who have been extremely eminent, say, in the civil service, who have been a lateral entrant. You know, Montesh Sondi, or the person who, an engineer who established BHEL and Bhakra Nangal Dam. These were all engineers from different organizations and taken into the government, and then ultimately they became Secretary Heavy Industries and similar situation. So I don't think lateral entries has been done only now. Lateral entry allows people to be bring their own expertise, but at the same time, again the question of maturity, that one should never think that I know all. And India is not something where you can stereotype everything. What is good for Ram cannot be good for Shyam necessarily. It is not necessary that everything would be good for everybody. So you've got to understand. And therefore, it again is a factor which amongst the senior people who would say that, all right, you are welcome, but now you sit down and let's talk, and then help him become a good, in fact, so-called civil servant. And therefore, I think lateral entry or people from outside should not be treated or seen as a kind of an ingress into a service, but be seen as a welcome change. But it is our say duty to see that they function well, because after all, who are they going to serve? They're going to serve the country, and we have to ensure that with less effort, more outcome is achieved.
With today's times, everyone there's a lot of questions on security, and I think you have answered them very well. So I will not repeat. I'll ask you to again talk about what the Chinese have done, etc., etc. But I'm going to ask you a certain other question on that. You know, you mentioned about a two-front war. I think a three-front war with the ocean there, which is our major trading route. That is going to be the situation where we'll have to be very careful about what is happening in Indian Ocean, both the seas, etc., Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea. Those are the areas which I think would be a very important question.
Yes, certainly. It's when I meant two-front war, was that two-front meaning China and Pakistan. And sea, air, space, everything is our resource. Therefore, I said that the Blue Water Navy has to be used. We have to have the Navy doing at our part of the plan. Whether it is involved in a battle or skirmish or anything or action is beside the point, but they must exercise pressure. And similarly, our Air Force must exercise pressure. So the two front was limited to basically China and Pakistan, and all our resources, whether it is air, sea, space, cyber, everything should be used.
You took it one step quickly. I was about to bring in cyber, but I think you are covering that immediately. But you know, we are talking about economy going down, etc. All there's a downtrend, and we need to be funding various other areas. Will this create a problem? Will it reduce defense funding? Is it going to be guns versus butter?
I don't think so, because even if it is defense expenditure or expenditure on defense or creation of abilities, that is why I said dual use. So the same companies, you know, what happened was Russia epitomized that single-use companies were formed. So from 1918 to 1935, Russia had a completely industrial revolution of putting very high quality of industries for defense. Now the moment, and USSR, not Russia. Now USSR collapsed in 1991. And these these juggernauts were unable to find work because you can't convert from defense industries into civil. But from civil industries, you can convert to defense, like what USA has, or UK, or for that matter, Europe, other countries. Now, so dual use things, if you make, you can switch off or to for defense, as well as then you can go for civil applications. So that should be we have a network of capable industries, and that's why I said start practicing that. If you make large trucks, then
Yes.
axle 12 axle trucks, we can make tanks. But tanks are not, you don't have an infinite requirement of tanks. I mean, tanks are required, say, 20,000. Once you have 20,000 of tanks or 22,000 of tanks of that quality, of that type, Indian Army doesn't require more tanks. So what do? We don't require more than 40 squadrons of, out of that, maybe 15 or 20 squadrons of fighter aircraft. 15 or 20 squadrons or 10 or 12 squadrons of helicopters. Now, you can't keep on producing helicopters for our forces. So we should be able to have used these capacities and capabilities for producing civil aircraft. And that will continue to give employment to people. Now, every bit of equipment requires tens of thousands of components. And the tens of thousands of components require huge material. Now, our value addition starts from material. So if we do that, then we are able to find employment in everything. We take a breath and we are employing people. We take out a breath and we are employing people, like that. And most of the countries which are in the manufacturing sector have used that. And also might be another question that what happens to artificial intelligence and you don't have the requirement of people. Again, the same thing. If the pie is larger, then you require larger numbers of people. So you keep on increasing the pie. And so from domestic market to regional market to international market. But you have
Can I ask you the last question? Bindu, you're making faces at me to hurry up, so I'm trying to do that. You just mentioned security in passing. It is said that the future wars will be on water.
Yes.
What do we do to protect a country's requirement of water? And particularly all the dams that are coming on Brahmaputra is going to be a major problem. If they can just wash us out, our troops, when we try to defend Arunachal Pradesh.
No, I would like to put another view on this. Our problem will not be that of large or larger quantities of water. Our problem will be, which India would face, will be lesser and very little quantity of it.
Yes.
And so, therefore, large numbers of human beings in different areas, including a number of cities, where adequate groundwater or even the surface water from distant areas will not be enough. So we have to recycle. There is no other way. We have to recycle. We have to be able to have more areas which should come under, tree plantation, so that inch by inch we can restore the balance of nature, so that we have. You're seeing USA. USA is about 3.5 times our size and about 6 or 7 times lesser our population. And yet, huge areas of USA is under fire. Why? Because it is dry. Trees don't catch fire just like that. But if the earth is dry, it is. Now, India have flown many times all over, and not by transport aircraft, but on helicopters. And India, ladies and gentlemen, is not green. India is brown.
Yes.
Only in Assam or part of Bihar, North Bihar, and then Assam, North Bengal, and on the other side, the Western Ghats of Maharashtra, and continuing on to Kerala is green. Remainder is brown. And people live there. There is no place where people don't live. So the population requires water. We are talking about smart cities. How a city is going to be smart without water? And I'm talking about, say, smart villages. How the villages going to become smart without water? So I think water. And then, of course, there is energy, which is also required. We consume, 1100 kilowatt per hour at an average, India. And this is 1/4 of the world's average. World's average is 4,000 kilowatt per hour. 1/6 of that of China, whose average is 6,000 kilowatt per hour. 1/12 of that of United States. Now, per capita power requirement, power availability is low. But demand is also low because we are not in the manufacturing side. The moment we do manufacturing, our demand will increase. And we have to have power. So power will be another this thing. Energy will be. So water and energy we have to be. And then food, because much of our land is going into horizontal urbanization instead of vertical urbanization.
Yes.
I said that USA is 3.5 times our size and 6 or 7 times less our population. Yet, many hundred years ago, New York was built vertically. And I go all over India and we find horizontal construction. That means we are taking more land to put less people.
Mr. Shekhar Dutt, we could have gone on, and I wish we had more time to talk. Thank you very much. This would have been, I think, a couple of hours would be maybe still too little. Thank you. And Bindu, over to you. Please take it over.
Thank you very much, sir. And I really understand how difficult it was to contain all these questions in such a short time. Yes, but all good things have to come to an end, and the time that we have for bringing the public memorial lecture to an end has also come here. So thank you very much, and I now request my colleague, Professor Kshitij Naikde, the Deputy Director Administration, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, sir. It's been an honor listening to all of you here. And it's an honor for me to actually present this vote of thanks today because I've had a very special relationship with PCGT for a very long time. When I was a student about 5 years ago, I was actually given an award at the hands of Mr. Julio Ribeiro at Shanmukhanand Hall by the same organizers of PCGT. And 4 years later, in 2017, when I joined Symbiosis as an assistant professor in July-August 2017, the first event that I attended and organized was the PCGT, this particular BG Deshmukh Memorial Lecture. And the first task that was given to me was to escort Mr. Nagpal and his colleagues, who obviously misunderstood me as a student back then. And it was a very beautiful first memory for me. And 3 years down the line, here I am actually proposing this vote of thanks. So kind of for me, life has actually come like a full circle at this moment of time. And I remember meeting Mr. Khoth also, who kind of misunderstood or kind of thought that I'm a student. And I had to tell him that I'm a newly joined faculty member. So since then, 3 years down the line, I think I've religiously followed. I think that year, Mr. Swadhin Kshatriya sir had delivered the lecture. It was the competition commission, and it was brilliant. And since then, every year I've eagerly awaited and I've eagerly, keenly followed the various members who have come as the chief guest. And today, Mr. Dutt has kind of surpassed them all by his brilliant speech, brilliant lecture. It was literally like sitting in one of the international relations lectures that I've attended in college. Like I was so awed by his kind of knowledge and the precision of his facts. Like nothing was off point today. There was no rhetoric, and it was purely academic. And I really appreciate the kind of effort he must have taken in kind of preparing for this particular speech. So thank you very much, sir. I know the vote of thanks is something that everybody wants to get done with, but for me today it's a very special occasion. So thank you very much, members of the PCGT group, for organizing these lectures year after year and bringing for our students such amazing people. I also want to thank VC ma'am who was present here on behalf of the university for sparing her valuable time out of the busy schedule that she is actually occupied with daily. I also want to thank Director ma'am for always encouraging us to kind of actively be a part of this and create an academic environment around such events and such issues. So thank you very much, ma'am. I also want to thank Dutt sir for actually highlighting some of the issues which are extremely crucial and extremely important for the current context. I would actually take this opportunity to invite you later on in the academic year, academic semester, to address the students. I teach international relations and political science, and the questions that we couldn't take today, Coach sir probably will know that there are like hundreds of questions that we haven't answered. So I would actually like to invite you again later for a separate session where you can actually answer these questions that students keep asking us day in, day out in class. So every time something happens on the border, every time a governor takes a certain decision in the country, these are the questions we professors have to actually answer. So there would be nobody better than you to actually answer these questions directly. So thank you very much, sir, for such an engrossing academic discourse. Thank you very much for the IT members, the IT staff who has worked painstakingly for so many days, especially in this entire COVID situation where most of the events, 95% of the events have to be conducted online, where they come before us and actually leave after us when the event gets over. So a special thank you for the IT and team members for conducting this event in a very structured and a professional manner. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and all the students who have been patiently listening.